comes from the inside out.
When we're living congruently with our values, there's happiness because there is that sense of wholeness.
Wholeness is when the way of your being matches the truth of your being.
In this episode, we are focusing on the Enneagram Type 3, the Achiever. So if you are a Type 3, listen up, because you will learn a whole lot about yourself. For the rest of us types, we will recognize traits in this episode that we identify with. But for a Type 3, they create and live from these traits. We are working through the book Enneagram Empowerment by Laura Miltenberger. There is a link in the description to get that book. And we also are from Richard Rohr's The Enneagram. If you are interested in taking the Enneagram test, you can go to michellewingle.com/Enneagram. There is also a link in the description. And if you send me your type, I'll send you some more information, maybe a little bit different than what we'll even hear in these episodes. So some famous Type 3s are Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins, Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga, Beyonce, Justin Bieber, right? These are head forward, committed achievers. And in the book, she calls these people, the Type 3, she actually calls them the luminary, but I've always called them the achiever, and that's probably their most common name. But Type 3s are motivated, adaptable, impressive, vain, confident, productive, hardworking, appearance-focused, energetic, successful. They see the world through the lens of potential and success. They set their sights high and usually accomplish what they put their minds to. They get it done. She says that they call them luminaries because of their impressive and charismatic nature. A lot of times they are attractive type people to humans. They just have this charisma that is attractive. They are energetic and productive, but they're willing to put the work in. It's not just about achieving so that they can have the certificates and the awards on the wall. It's about doing the achievement. It's about the work. That's what's fulfilling to them. It's the actual earning it, right? They are often able to inspire us to do better and to achieve ourselves. So they're not just simply achieving for their own benefit. They're also inspirational. But despite their apparent confidence, 3s are driven by the fear that they won't be worthy of love and acceptance. They feel they must project certain characteristics to receive a place in the world and in their relationships. The obstacles 3s face are emotional dishonesty and superficiality. In an effort to look valuable, 3s can become overly competitive, or they might take on a fake appearance, or pretend like they're good at something in order to impress. The 3s are actually the middle of 2 and 4, obviously, which are the feelings triad. And so what's so interesting is because they are fully feeling, each wing is fully feeling. So they almost have a double dose of feeling or emotions. Because of that, most of the time, they are actually blocked emotionally. That's something that's common. They actually don't feel emotions. Maybe it's because it's too overwhelming. Maybe it's because these insecure feelings get in the way, so they shut them down. But that's often what can happen is, even though they're in the feelings train, they really, really have a difficult time feeling their emotions, especially when they're in the egoic stage of development. So the Type 3s might say things like, I'm busy and efficient. I always have a running to-do list in my head. Or, I'm adaptable. Put me anywhere and I can shine or at least fit in. I keep my biggest goals and aspirations to myself. That way, if I fail, nobody will know. I'm incredibly hardworking. I love motivating people to be their best selves. I am very driven to succeed at whatever I'm doing. I'm good at faking it, so it's hard to know if I actually made it. I'm always worried I'll get called out as a fraud or an imposter. People have told me I seem insincere. Most of the time, I'm the most put together and collected person in the room. I can change my personality to fit in with different groups or situations. Type 3, they say, will walk into a room and just instinctively will know who's the person they need to talk to in order to get another achievement made. They just have this sixth sense about the hierarchy in the room, kind of. Their key motivations are to be successful and impressive. Other types will care about their achievements, but type 3s kind of need that impressive. They kind of need people to notice it as well. And they need to be desirable and admired. And they're motivated to feel valued and worthy of love. These are their motivations. So they want something's in there that says, hey, would you like to be successful? I'll do what I got to do. They're motivated to achieve that. They're motivated to achieve and be admired, and they're motivated to feel valued. Those are what motivates them. Their key fears. So they might say, I will fail, and I will fail others. This is their key fear, failing, the big F word for type 3s. They will fear that I will be seen as phony or incompetent, or that they will be worthless. So again, with the greatness of the Enneagram is we understand our key fears. We also understand how to push through them. So I will fail and I will fail others. We look for achievements. We make sure, a type 3 makes sure that they let themselves fully fill their achievements, and that they practice and remembering their achievements so that they can combat this, that even if they fail in one area, that they've been a success in all these other areas. So it's important for a type 3 to really keep track of their achievements and let them be so. They will be seen as phony or incompetent. So again, looking at their achievements to counteract that false belief, or that they're worthless, because type 3s have plenty of achievements. It's just in their nature. But these negative thoughts come in that kind of pick at him, which the rest of us would be like, hey, those don't bother me because I've got a list of all these achievements. So sometimes, it can sound like, oh, they're just wanting all their, they just want to achieve. But to them, they need to achieve in order to work with their own energy. The key obstacles for a type 3 are emotional dishonesty, like we talked about. Because those motivations or the fears to fail, or, so their motivations for the success and their fear of failure, they don't know exactly how they feel. It's just, what do they need to feel in order to not feel those, or in order to achieve in order to not feel those. So the real emotional honesty is not important to them because it doesn't help them achieve anything. And yet that's one of their obstacles that causes some of these key fears. And maybe because of those motivations, they might make choices that are not in their best interest, because we're just trying to get what we want, trying to achieve the goal. Another one is superficiality, and they might have workaholic tendencies. That desire for achievement makes it really hard to turn off and just relax. As children, type 3s were often loved not for their own sake, but were praised and rewarded when they were successful and had special achievements to show for it. When they came home from school, or if they won a football game, their mom or dad might say, "You're a good boy, we're proud of you." Gradually, They idealized victory and success and developed the guiding motto, I'm good when I win. So with these childhood things, sometimes maybe there was other things that went on too, but this was the language that stuck. This was the language that got programmed in. So it's not like a parent wanted to raise their child to be a type 3, but this was the messages that stayed with and helped create the persona and personality of a type 3. So some considerations for growth for a type 3. Learn the importance of stillness and rest. Intentionally take time to simply just be yourself. Without your phone or electronics, without a plan or an agenda. See what happens for you in stillness. It will teach you things you need to know. And if you have to look at it this way, say, I'm going to make a goal that I am in silence and stillness, and then achieve that goal. Do you see how that works? Work towards finding some time for stillness and rest. It might be difficult, but making it a goal and achieving that goal as much as possible will help make that better. And then the stillness and rest takes over. And then you start to learn the deeper lessons deep inside your big S self. Another consideration for growth is to expand your emotional vocabulary. Practice identifying and naming your own feelings and the feelings of others. It's important to you to slow down enough to acknowledge the feelings in and around you and give them space to exist within you before moving on. Emotions connect you more deeply with others, and they help you connect more deeply with who you are. A good amount of existential stress can be alleviated by identifying and acknowledging emotions. Now that may sound like nails on the chalkboard to a type 3, but that is the key. You are in the feelings trine. It is one of your superpowers, but you might not know how to use it or access it just naturally. Also, know that you are already worthy of being here and being loved. A lot of times we feel like we have to achieve something in order to reach some point, but you start at worthy and loved. That is the starting point. And anything, it just never goes below. It never goes in the negative. There's no reaching that mark. It is just always within you. You were put here on purpose, type 3s. You don't have to earn the right to be here. Create a goal of living within this space and realizing that you are already worthy of love and acceptance, even before you accomplish anything. Once you practice, once you achieve this state of knowing that you are worthy with just at square one without any achievement, then your authenticity will flow naturally and you will begin to see that you have nothing left to prove. And it will begin to feel a deep sense of knowing yourself and finding achievement within and feeling good about those achievements rather than just the ones that everyone else can see. Another consideration is to go places where you don't shine. Find your struggles and lean into them. Growth and healing happens outside of your comfort zone. The muscle does not get stronger without a little bit of pain, and that is very true for a type 3. We've got to move into these uncomfortable places and allow them to neutralize because we're there. Lastly, figure out who you are apart from things that you are most proud of. Who you are when you take away your most valued achievements or belongings. Who are you apart from the treasured roles you play? Find a therapist or a trusted guide who can help you discover your identity apart from your success. Successes can fade or be taken away, so you want to be anchored by the pieces of you that will last. I think that it's an important thing to note. You might need a partner to help you see that. That might not be something you can see in yourselves because that exterior look of things just seems like it's like the air. We can all see it, but to you don't see it. You're just living in it. That what it looks like is the definition of it. So looks become really important, or, something substantial that you can say, hey, here's why I'm a good person. That just seems like just the way it should be, and yet it's not. So you've got to find this person outside of those achievements and really achieve this authentic you. Type 3's stress will usually come from the fear of failure. Failure will induce stress automatically. The idea, even the prospect, the chance that there might be any kind of looks like I'm failing will be a big stress inducer. So how do we mindfully respond to that stress? When that fear of failure shows up, notice your tendency towards self-deceit or emotional desire. So maybe you might start blaming other people for why you didn't achieve your things. Or you might start to make up a story that just pushes that feeling of failure away, so it doesn't reflect on you, that it's somehow someone else's fault or the situation. And also we might turn to anger, or type 3 might turn to anger when they're really feeling sad or they're really feeling insecure. And a type 3 needs to really pay attention to what they're actually feeling, because it's really easy to just default outward, because that stress trigger of failure, when this happens, is to acknowledge your emotions. Like we said, do something nice for yourself, take a hot shower or maybe a cold shower, journal about your emotions, go for a walk, talk to someone, be vulnerable. This is going to be hard for you because you might fear that you look like you're not put together, but that's the vulnerability is what's connecting. Take deep breaths, eat a healthful meal, get a good sleep, drink a glass of water, spend time in nature, give yourself a hug. These are some mindful ways to turn to. Make it a list. All right, I'm feeling like failure. I'm nervous about failure. Turn to your list. That's one of your innate traits or lists. So make a list of these things and then just turn to them and then just kind of check them off as if it's a list to achieve. So, use your strengths as an achiever to mindfully combat stress. Thinking back to some of the motivating fears of I will fail, or I will fail them, or I'll be seen as phony or incompetent, I will be worthless. And I can feel, as I even just say those things, if you feel them hit almost physically, gut punch, chances are you're a type 3. So a negative thinking might be, yes, I did get that promotion, but honestly, it's probably a fluke. They just needed someone for that position quickly. Yeah, this is how we will deny the reality, or type 3s will deny the reality, or not pay attention to their emotion. Their emotion is really like proud and excited, but we're reacting in a different way. So an empowered thought would be, yes, I did get that promotion. I have worked really hard at this company and my hard work is paying off. They could have chosen someone else, but they chose me. And it might feel really mechanical to speak this way to yourself, but over time, it'll make such a difference. Another example of negative thinking is, I ran 5 miles, but so what? I have friends who run marathons. So typical of a type 3. Can never give yourself a break. You've never achieved, even though you are the achiever. It feels like there's just always one more achievement to go. So an alternative thought would be, there are lots of people who can't run 5 miles and some people who can run a marathon. Regardless of what other people can or can't do, it is very meaningful for me to run 5 miles. I'm excited and proud of myself. Type 3s are notorious for should statements. I should put more time into self-care. So even listening to this, you're like, oh, I should do that. Oh, right. And you start to think of it as like, yep, I didn't achieve that. Oh, yep. Oh, I failed at that. Those kind of negative thoughts will come in. Nobody is in charge of how much self-care I should or shouldn't do. Self-care is something I haven't prioritized lately, but I can prioritize it now if I want to and if I choose to. Don't worry about looking bad if you don't do what you're supposed to do. Like, really, really work on achieving an identity that doesn't look towards that exterior, what it would look like from other people's point of view, and that's what your judgment of it is. I don't know if I've mentioned it in the other podcasts, but in each of the podcasts, I've linked to a list of values. And to help you with your Type 3 Enneagram, it's important to also know what your values are. So print out the list of values, just gradually go through, and the things that just kind of hit you, like, yeah, that's important, circle them all. And then as best as you can, narrow it down to 3, 2 is even better. And that way, when you go to make a decision, you can just have this list of, does this support my value? And then you can make the Enneagram be more fine-tuned and customized to you. Some great self-care for Type 3s are to nourish your heart, plant a flower garden, and keep bird feeders full in your yard. Care for things that are non-productive in return. Things that a pet is great. Things that there's nothing you can take their achievements for. Something that doesn't give back or rewards you. Use crayons or finger paints to draw a picture representing how you feel inside. Gather nail polishes, jewels, glitter, and nail stickers, and give yourself an artistic manicure. Get creative and let your imagination lead the way. For your body, when you eat, turn off your phone and electronics. Chew slowly, putting your fork down between bites. Practice savoring each taste and texture. Take a long bath or hot showers. Use exercise as a way to get in touch with your body and to ground yourself in the present, versus so that you can impress other people, or that you can look good, or that you can just put it on your list to say, I accomplished that for the day. Really get grounded and feel into your body. Pay attention to what your feet feel each time they touch the earth. Listen to your breath. Feel your lungs and heartbeat, and observe each muscle that contracts to help you move. Mindfully care for yourself by allowing spans of silence to exist in conversations before you respond. Practice pausing and taking deep breaths while you're listening to others. You know, I'm a Type 2, so I'm going to have a little bit more Type 3 qualities in me than maybe a Type 7 would. And so this is something that I was talking about the other day, and how Zoom has helped me, because I am an interrupter. Like, I am so excited and so into whatever conversation I'm having, and I do have a little bit of intuition, so I kind of understand the momentum of the conversation and kind of what's happening on a different level, and so sometimes I interrupt, but Zoom has been so great because it doesn't let you talk over each other, so it's helped me build that muscle of just waiting and listening, and maybe nodding my head more than saying something, because I might even just, I might really do that in podcasts, and I mean it to be a connecting thing, but sometimes it's disruptive of the conversation. So that one kind of goes, oh, I get that one. Also, to feed your mind, Type 3s, take a pause day. Do only things that are non-productive and don't have an obligation attached. Oh, that's going to be hard, but you got to do it. Ask yourself, what do I feel like doing at this moment? What would fill up my soul? Also, choose one emotion to contemplate each week and observe when and how it shows up in your life. My husband, through his CEN, really struggled with understanding emotions. And I literally printed out little cards. And if you go to thewholenessnetwork.com, join the library in the children's section, there's this amazing chart of emotions that's for kids, but it's also helpful for adults, because there are so many different emotions. We always filter everything down to sad, mad, or glad. But when we look at a chart of emotions, there's a couple of them in the library, it makes you feel better to really name the emotion that you're having. It really makes a difference. I was really surprised by it. I keep that chart on my phone, and I do that a lot when I'm just not feeling well. I'll open up that chart, and when I see, oh, that's what I'm feeling. And one of the charts in the library even shows how things are a mixture of emotions. And when I say, oh, because maybe mad, glad, and sad are typical. I think these ones are negative emotions, but it's like, oh, there's a little fear mixed in this emotion. What is the fear? And then there's a little bit of grief mixed in this emotion. So what am I grieving? And it really helps me to just move into a place where I understand what I'm feeling at the moment. And I can't tell you that just that has some relief for me when I just know what's going on. So to choose one every week and pay attention to it and work on it, it may sound so trivial, it may sound so juvenile, but it will go a long way, and quickly you will actually start to feel more empowered in your life. I can almost guarantee it. So the wings of a type 3 are 2, the helper, and 4, the individualist. And like I say, they're in the middle of this feelings. Their wisdom comes from their feelings. Their feelings are their superpower, and yet because they're in the middle of 2 feelings, that's common with these trines, is the ones that are in the middle, actually, it's almost like they have an opposite to what the others would, almost like too much or something. So a type 6 in the thinking, sometimes they don't do their own thinking, it's outward. Or the type 9 in the body, sometimes they're disconnected from the body. So it's almost like it just kind of does a reversal when they're in the middle of the trine. And again, because in that trine, we also, our core fear or our core emotion is that shame. And that shame shows up for the achiever as in not being able to impress, like if I don't do it correctly, the best, that it doesn't achieve something. It's not, for type 3, it's not just to do something, it has to produce something. There has to be some kind of a produce or an achievement, something that, especially from outside, that says yes. And they kind of depend on that to reduce their shame. But that's the real struggle of the type 3, is to move inward and let that shame be comforted and removed from within instead of without. For a type 3, when they're in stress, they're going to move into more of a type 9, which interestingly enough is more, where a type 3 would be very kind of forward momenting and achievement. A type 9, sometimes even a type 9, can be labeled as lazy. So when they're stressed, they're going to move into that type 9 and struggle and have no motivation and things like that. When they're under stress, they're going to not be able to, that inability to achieve is going to make them feel like giving up. So in order to move out of stress, they need to take on some type 6 characteristics, which are the loyalist. And I would say loyal to themselves, loyal to their past achievements, loyal to what they actually know about themselves, that they are an achiever, that they can look outside of themselves for and give a little. A loyalist is more of a giving person than a receiving. So it's time for a type 3 to move into more of that energy. When you feel stuck, when you can't move forward, when it feels like everything you're doing is just wrong, it's maybe time to kind of serve some other people. Make sure that comes from an authentic place and not just a busy your brain. We can do anything to just distract and busy ourselves in order to not feel the emotion, even good things like serving. And it's to move out of stress. We do not want to just distract or do things to distract in order to move through it. We need to actually move through it. And that's actually feeling it. That's actually, So it's like, hey, I need to go help someone else. I'm not doing okay. And it's just this more of a purposeful act rather than can't handle this, distract, right? Type 3s also are in the trine of moving against others, or they're very assertive. So where other types will move towards people or be compliant with people, and then there's some people that are completely withdrawn. These people are assertive and they will kind of move against other people. They don't achieve, especially egoic, they're not going to achieve because it feels good to achieve. A lot of times they could maybe achieve because, and that achievement only counts if it's better than someone else, right? So it's kind of that assertive against others. It's in competition. That's how it shows up in a type 3. Speaking of egoic, when a type 3 is living in their egoic state, they might become vindictive, or they might want to ruin someone else's happiness. They might resent people, their achievements. They might want to take down or destroy things that remind them of their failures. They maybe at the lowest level can even respond like a narcissistic personality disorder person would. That's the lowest level of a type 3. They can also maybe be devious or deceptive, especially when wrongdoings or if their mistakes are exposed. They're going to do things to make the story different. They're going to maybe even underhandedly or deceptively. They can be untrustworthy. They can sabotage people. They might be jealous. Their fear of failure and humiliation can cause them to exploit people or to be opportunistic. They might be covetous of the success of others and willing to do whatever it takes to pursue what they want, their desires, and this illusion of superiority to be the best. That's an egoic form of type 3s. If you identify with any of those things, then use the Enneagram to evolve into the higher states. So on autopilot, most people would just be on autopilot. They just want to impress others with their superiority. They promote themselves and they make themselves sound better than they really are. They can inflate notions about themselves and their talents. To them, it's just like, that's what you do. It's not like to them, they don't feel like they're being dishonest at all. That's just what you do. You make yourself look good. That just is like air in the world. It's just truth, right? And they might be seductive. They might be arrogant. They care about how they're perceived and their looks to the point where maybe it's interrupting other important things because they're so worried about their looks, whether that's physically or perceptions. They will lose touch with their feelings and just become this emotional facade of acting how they're supposed to act or whatever way is appropriate, quote, for the time, instead of what really is. They might have some phoniness. Their self-worth will depend on achieving the goals and the drive that they have for themselves. So when we move to an enlightened 3, they're going to start to improve themselves to be the best that they can. So it's not about being the best. It's this internal best that they can be. Their achievements start to become self-motivated and competing with themselves instead of everyone else. When they do this, they help other people and they motivate them, and people like them and they see them as positive and inspirational. They are self-assured, so they don't become this humble, this stereotype of this, oh no, that's not me. No, they can speak about their achievements and they are self-assured about their abilities. It just becomes rooted deep within themselves instead of in comparison to someone else. They can be very energetic and competent, and they have high self-esteem. They believe in themselves and they believe in their own value. They've worked toward that. I think it's a work towards for all of these types to get into the enlightened version. They become adaptable, and they're gracious, and they're inner directed and authentic. They're modest, and they're actually charitable. They understand about giving, and they can even begin to have some self-deprecating humor, which for other types we're trying to get rid of. But for a type 3, that's when they learn to become enlightened, is when they can make light of themselves. This fullness of heart emerges, and they are gentle and they are benevolent. The way that they can act with other types, they might, with the reformer, they get along well with the reformer. They help the reformer achieve their reformations, right? 3 with the helper. These two are very similar because they're kind of brother, sister. They're right next to each other on the Enneagram. So they have a lot in common. The achiever might look at the helper, though, as, why would you do that? That doesn't bring anything to you. A helper will help the other person and maybe receive nothing in return. An achiever will just kind of look at the two as they don't understand why they would do that. That doesn't make any sense to them. Why they would effort something and not receive something back. A 3 and a 4, again, they're next to each other on the Enneagram, but the 4, they're very individualist. They're very to themselves. A type 3 might really be interested in the type 5's investigation into how things work and how they can use that to their advantage. A type 5 is more in their head, and that speaks to the achiever who doesn't like to be in their heart. So that's how those guys can interact. A type 3 and a type 6, because they need to look to the type 6 as a place to calm down. They might be driven to a type 6 and attracted to a type 6, and use the type 6's loyalty to their advantage, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. A type 3 with the enthusiast is going to be a little tricky. The enthusiast is almost the opposite of the achiever. The enthusiast is more about achieving fun, and their new and exciting things, changes all the time. That's really important to a type 7, which to a type 3, those things get in the way of achieving. So those two can have some friction. So if you're a parent and you're a 3 and you have a child who's a 7, there might be a lot of conflict there. So really use the Enneagram to understand more about each other and how you can understand each other's values and each other's motivations. A 3 and a 8 are really together motivated to get things done. They are similar in personalities. The 8 doesn't really want to achieve something, but they both have this drive. They're both very driven and very forward moving. And again, the 3 and the 9 are again going to have a little bit of friction, because a 9 would choose to be peaceful and to get along with each other way before they would want to achieve something or to use people or to see people as a way to get what they want, which is kind of innate in the type 3, which if we need to get something done and they can see who's the ones that can get them there, that can be a great asset. These things are not always negative. We just have to look at them and try and work toward that enlightened way. That is the type 3, and we will see you next time for the Enneagram type 4, the individualist. We invite you to the wholenessnetwork.com, where you'll find the Wholeness Library. Inside, you'll find tutorials, downloads, mini classes, and all sorts of streaming content for you on your wholeness journey.